What's going on, everybody? Dogman Dan here. Mass Effect Andromeda. So the latest patch is out. It's actually been out for a little over a week at least. And it's the 1.08 combat balance update patch. And I want to talk a little bit about some of the stuff that you'll see in here, or that have changed, that are pretty interesting. And otherwise, what I don't cover, I actually have listed over on the forums, the nogcommunity.com forums. You can check it out under the Mass Effect Andromeda area if you're interested. But basically what they talked about is continuing to improve weapon and power balances based on player feedback. In particular, they addressed weapon bloom and accuracy. They actually halved the maximum reticle size for automatic weapons and decreased the speed at which it reaches the maximum size. They improved accuracy for these weapons across the board. Okay, they did some melee balances as well. Where they wanted melee builds to be viable for some kits at all difficulty levels, and to reduce reliance on the Juggernaut shield. They buffed base damage of nearly all melee attacks and introduced more passive bonuses to skill trees. They reduced the melee bonus on the Juggernaut shield to make it less of a required factor for these particular builds. Okay. They also addressed issues with teleporting enemies and reducing unfair sync kills. Paid particular attention to the Fiend, reducing its speed and preventing sprinting once it gets within 10 meters of a target. They prevented enemies from sync attacking for 2 seconds after they jump to a different level. Okay, kind of to help out any syncing issues a bit there that will occur on the peer-to-peer system, if you will. Also made some improvements to the pack offerings. Now, some of the pack offerings you'll see are what you saw back in Mass Effect 3. Okay, for those looking to round out your stuff, they introduced, or reintroduced, if you will, Reserves Pack, the premium pack focused on characters. They introduced a couple others that we've been missing, more or less. So now the Arsenal pack is back, similar to a premium pack, but the focus is on weapons more. To speed up your refreshment between rounds, they've added a jumbo supply pack, which costs 10,000 credits, or points, if you will, and it contains 5 times as many consumables as the regular supply pack. That's why it costs twice as much. And finally, you'll know that the purchase of a mod pack from the item store, which contains a random weapon mod, is available as well. So they added a couple of the ones that we're used to from before, and it has made a big difference. Being able to pick up, the jumbo supply pack, getting 5 of each item, plus a whole bunch of different mods to put on your characters, works out pretty nicely. Okay, so moving on, in terms of melee, there's a few changes here. So across the board, the damage has definitely been increased. We're talking the Omni Blade went up from 275 to 400. The Cryo Gauntlet moved from a 200 to a 400. The Asari Sword moved from 400 to 740. Base damage is what the numbers we're talking about here. The Krogan Hammer from a 400 to a 650. And they also increased the radius from 1 meter to 2 meter for the hammer. And the Krogan Headbutt increased the damage from 330 to 740. So pretty big changes there in terms of melee across the board, and the numbers are pretty significant. In powers, the Solarian Infiltrator, the offensive tech rank 6, where technical synergy upgrade will now trigger for all 3 powers, not just energy drain. In terms of energy drain, they decreased rank 6 shield restored bonus from 30% to 25%. Cryo Beam now grants 25% assist score instead of the support score. Shockwave increased damage from 245 to 350. Overload, they increased the chaining damage when fully charged from 100 to 300. So a rank 6 maximum charge now grants a plus 30% to all overload damage, not just chain damage. Damage from frag grenades now bypasses enemy shield gates. Damage from sticky grenades now bypasses enemy shield gates. Damage from Trip Mine now bypasses enemy shield gates, which is a nice thing. They did make some changes in combos here. They increased the tech combo base damage from 225 to 257 on bronze, from 350 to 400 on silver, and from a 432 to a 494 on gold. The damage over time was not affected. Throw nor does standard combo detonation damage. So previous damage was less than, or negative, or whatever, less than 25%, if you will. And that's for comboing. Okay, so, and you know, combo would be something that you and another teammate put together. Okay. In terms of weapons, now, like I said, they improved the accuracy of the automatic weapons while reducing the reticule size and speed of reticule bloom for automatic weapons. In assault rifles, we're talking the sweeper, and these are changes that were made on May 19th in the server side update, but increase the damage from a 66 to a 6477 to a 96 115, and reduce the recoil. Change the hit reaction to a short interrupt. Okay, on the Cyclone, these are the same things here. This was done server side, but now it's available. They increased the damage from 37 to 47 up to 59 to 74. On the Avenger, the damage increased from a 5566 to a 6679, which is pretty nice. In terms of pistols and SMGs, the Talon, the damage increased up to an 84-101. The force decreased from a 50 to 35. The weight increased from 28 to 30. On the Charger, damage increased up to a 57-68. In terms of sniper rifles, the Vanquisher weight was increased from a 45 to a 55. The Widow was decreased from 65 to 50, so that's a huge difference there. Indra, they removed the large camera shake on the Indra's first shot. On the Incisor, they reduced the Incisor's recoil per shot. And on the Viper S, the damage increased from a 465-52 all the way up to a 610-732. So those are pretty significant changes, and you can feel them when you're playing with them in terms of, you know, in the game. In enemies, Fiends, Hydra, the Adi, and Ascendants now wait at least 2 seconds to initiate a sync attack after jumping up from a lower level. Bronze enemies now do 5% more damage with all attacks. Silver enemies will now do 10% more damage with all attacks. Gold enemies now do 10% more damage with all attacks, where they decrease the enemy shield gate duration from a 0.25 seconds down to a 0.1 second. Over in single player mode, if you will, they increased enemy shield gate amount by 50%. But in multiplayer, they increased the enemy shield gate amount on bronze, silver, gold from a 330, 640, 950 up to a 495, 1152, and 1995. Okay, so 1995. Big differences in that shield gating. Also, over in the multiplayer, the enemies in cover take less time to attack targets that are in the open, and they increase the distance enemies are willing to travel to execute a downed player from 9 meters out to 12 meters now. This reduced distance from which downed players can be executed is very interesting. We'll say that. So now you got an extra 3 meters on there, so these enemies will come and try to execute you pretty quick. In terms of the Ket, they slowed the wind up for the Fiend and Ascendant sync attack by 20%. And over in multiplayer, the Fiend no longer sprints when within 10 meters of the target. And it will decelerate to base speed as well. In the Remnant, the increased assembler weapon damage by 10%. They changed the assembler firing pattern from a 4-8 shot to a 4-9 shot. Okay. The damage spike at the end of the destroyer damage field now ignores players' health gate, which is nice. Observers now have a short charge up time before attacking as well. And then finally, over on the Outlaws, they converted the Farah's armor bar evenly into health and shield. And Hydra's sync attack windup is 20% faster and kills a target if successful. So a lot to be aware of here. Now they did make a number of changes in terms of the improved character creator and some single-player, multiplayer character changes overall. Rider's appearance, expanded the range and options on the creator. There's a whole bunch of stuff. Vendors now carry weapon mods for level 60 to 71 players. Vendors now sell weapon augments for automatic fire, burst rifle, or burst fire, and single shot fire. They improve the clarity of descriptions for augmentations, and this is all in single player. The plasma charge system now works properly for shotguns. The beam emitter augment now causes guns to fire a constant beam with scaling damage based on the weapon's damage per second. And over on the PC side, they added experimental support for Dolby Vision technology. Excuse me. And that's all in the single player mode. But it's in the multiplayer, the stealth grid challenge now increments properly. Fiends no longer sprint. We talked about that. The enabled movement correction during Fiend's attacks. Improved movement prediction for some enemies. Fix some issues that prevented melee attacks if a revive icon was near center screen. Just a couple things here. Fix issue where ammo pickup audio incorrectly played. Fix issue where the backlash could malfunction while moving. Using stealth and recon visor together no longer increases duration of invisibility for the Turian agent. Fix the issue where weight reduction modifications wouldn't actually reduce the weight. The revive pack transmitter now displays the revive status or radius, I should say, in the loadout screen. Equipping a Cobra RPG now interrupts reloading. So if you were reloading and you would go to equip an RPG, it interrupts it now. Before it wasn't interrupting it, so just be aware that once you go back to your weapon, you're going to have to reload. Player turns to Addy when getting synced to avoid teleportation issues now, or Adai, if you will. Or Adhai, I don't know. I can't say things right properly. Who knows? There's an issue with enemies that would occasionally enter T-pose when hit. And improve the visual and audio cues for players, ready status, and multiplayer lobbies. They made a couple changes in there so it's much easier to know when people are ready, and added lighting options to custom options, if you will. And that's pretty much covering most of everything that actually happened in the 1.08 update. It's a very interesting bunch of changes. Some stuff, like I said, I'm actually really liking. It does feel so much better now with a bunch of the changes. Sorry, my nose is way off. I'm sure there's still some more things that need to be corrected, both single player and multiplayer. But they're slowly moving along. I'm happy to see the additional premium packs in there now. Mod packs, if you will. I've tried a couple of the different ones. And it's nice to have those back in there. Something that you're used to seeing back from the Mass Effect 3 multiplayer. So you can mix and match and not just be stuck with the 3 particular mods that are, packs that were there before. We're pretty limited. So anyway, that's it in terms of the update. And I will catch you guys in future episodes. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you soon.